Acceptance rates are kind of bogus. In my last video, I touched on why acceptance rates are one of the reasons that the Ivy League isn't always an optimal experience for the average college student. And in this video, I want to touch on it again because there's a lot more depth here than I think people realize. In short, an acceptance rate is the rate of acceptance to a given college.
Oh my God!
It's a number that's calculated simply by dividing the applicants by the number of admits. People often view acceptance rates as the definitive standard for how competitive a school is, and it's often used to boast an elite status. The Ivy League is a key example of this, with most of the schools having an acceptance rate between 3 and 10%. So I'm going to give you a couple reasons why acceptance rates aren't as great as they seem. For those of you who haven't seen my videos before, my name is Jackson Walker, and I used to be an admissions representative at the University of Wisconsin. In that role, I helped students from across the world apply to the school and get accepted. If you haven't seen my other videos on this topic, I do encourage you to check those out as well. So the first and probably the biggest reason is the fact that the acceptance rate is a number that is manipulated a lot. Schools will usually charge an application fee whenever students want to send in an application. That's just kind of standard across the board. Usually some of the most elite schools will charge a higher fee than some of the less competitive ones. This will usually help a school weed out some of the less serious applicants, and it kind of provides a revenue boost for them as well. The thing to note about this, however, an important tip, is that you can often get fee waivers at a lot of schools, and I encourage you, if you're applying to colleges, to try to get as many fee waivers as possible. Some of these waivers, though, can sort of influence the acceptance rate. For example, Harvard has a pretty open, almost no questions asked policy about their fee waivers. If you apply for one, it almost seems by reading their website that you're gonna get one. So obviously there's a decreased opportunity cost there. If you're kind of someone on the fence, you're like, maybe I could get in, maybe not. Paying $85 to know, already for certain I probably won't go to Harvard seems like a big deal. But paying $0 with a fee waiver, might as well send in an application. The worst they're gonna say is no. There's a couple other factors too that make a school more attractive for on the fence students to apply. One of these is going test optional. This was a big deal during the pandemic, so a lot of them went test optional, meaning that you didn't have to send in your standardized test scores. This is sort of a trick almost, I would say, and it's kind of a mean one because it sort of implies that you don't have to have test scores to get into our school, but at the same time it's still going to follow the same premise where the most competitive students are going to get those acceptances, meaning the people with the highest test scores. Advertising too can also be another major way that schools attract applicants. You've probably gotten those letters in the mail, emails, things that, kind of make you feel special. They have their eye on me, they're looking at me. And it can kind of entice students that maybe aren't as competitive to, send in that application anyways, because the more applicants you have, that will drive down the amount of people you accept and the acceptance rate will go down. There are schools that also just straight up lie. Columbia University is a prime example of this. They ended up losing their top spot on the admissions rankings after it was revealed that they had manipulated their acceptance rate to appear lower than it actually is. And it's likely that Columbia was not the only school doing this. They were just the one that got caught. You also have to consider that the acceptance rate is purely for acceptances. So if you get put on the wait list, for example, that counts as a rejection for those acceptance metrics. Admissions officers also have to keep in mind that in order to have a good acceptance rate, they need to manage the amount of students they accept, because when determining who to accept to a school, the admissions officers primarily are looking for people that will accept that offer of admission once given. So if you think, for example, if a school issues a bunch of acceptances, but then students end up going elsewhere, that's not good for their metrics. So they need to determine which students are bent on going to their school. In some rare cases, this can result in somebody being too qualified for a school. If you're a stellar student and they can kind of tell that you're applying to your safety school, your backup school, they may just straight up reject you because it's better for their acceptance rate metrics. Another problem with acceptance rates is that it doesn't take into account a lot of different ways that students get into the school. When I was at UW, the University of Wisconsin, we sometimes had guaranteed transfer agreements with other schools where if students went to those institutions, they got a certain GPA, they did certain things. By their sophomore year, they would be allowed to come to UW. So we had to let them in. We couldn't put them through the admissions process. There's also certain quotas. Every school has different quotas, and there will be people that try to deny this. There's no such thing as quotas, especially with, affirmative action being a hot button topic lately. A lot of schools will try to deny those quotas, but it's not, quotas in the way that you're thinking of. For example, at UW, we were trying to get a student from every state of the US. We're also trying to get a student from every county in Wisconsin. Recently, the school made a change too, where the valedictorian of every school in the state will have guaranteed acceptance to UW as well. A lot of schools will use these numbers to kind of look how low our acceptance rate is type deal. We're, not just anyone can get in here, but that sort of has, almost a backwards effect where they're almost kind of telling the most competitive students to apply to their school. They're sort of saying, don't apply here unless you're really serious about it type deal. And then that has the effect of raising, the student body up, making them look better. So it's all a numbers game. The final reason here, and it's a pretty self-explanatory one, a low acceptance rate does not correlate with a better school. It is just a number at the end of the day. It's also important to take into account the student experience. You could thrive at a school with a higher acceptance rate than one at a lower acceptance rate. And there's nothing wrong with that. Measuring the quality of a school does not depend solely on that acceptance rate. It depends on a lot of different key factors, what the campus is like, what the classes are like, and how you personally enjoy a school. So if any of you high school seniors out there are looking at colleges and really fretting over that acceptance rate, thinking that it could negatively impact you, don't worry about that. Shoot for the stars, shoot for your dream school, and see what happens. I hope you guys found this video helpful, and like I said, go and check out my other video about why the Ivy League isn't as grand as it seems and why you might be interested in public Ivies. Please do feel free also to let me know down below, what else do you want to know about the college admissions process? There's so much more going on. There's so much more depth that we can go into. We've only just scratched the surface. I really appreciate you guys watching, liking, sharing, all that stuff. It's really great to see some of the engagement that these admissions videos are starting to get. Go check out my other stuff, and I will be back soon with another video for you.